My name is Eleanor Briggs, and I'm 72 years old. To most people, that means I should be baking cookies for grandkids or spending afternoons knitting by the window. But that's not my story. I still remember that afternoon at a little coffee shop downtown. The line was long, people glued to their glowing screens, tapping and scrolling like their lives depended on it. When it was finally my turn, I reached into my purse and pulled out my old flip phone. The plastic gave its familiar click as I opened it. Right behind me, a young woman burst out laughing. "Seriously, a flip phone? What are you even gonna do with that? Grandma, call the weather hotline." Her friends chuckled, and just like that, the whole shop seemed to be in on the joke. I didn't flinch. I pressed 2 buttons, listened to the short beep, and closed the phone. To her, I looked like nothing but a clueless old lady stuck in the past. What she didn't know was that I had just checked in on the secure system that manages my entire company. A company I built from scratch. A company she probably bought from without ever realizing whose hands kept it alive. She mocked my flip phone. But at 72, I was running something far bigger than her imagination could handle. Back home, the coffee shop wasn't the only place where people laughed at me. Sometimes, the harshest words came from the people sitting at my own dinner table. My son, Daniel, leaned back in his chair one evening and smirked. "Mom, you still using that flip phone? You can't even download an app. How are you supposed to keep up with the world?" His wife chimed in, her voice sugar-coated but sharp. "Maybe it's time to let the younger generation handle things. Technology's not really for 70-year-olds. The words stung, not because they doubted me, but because they had already decided I was incapable. Even the neighbors had their share. Mrs. Carter from across the street once shouted over the fence, "Eleanor, you should be joining our bingo nights instead of pretending you can keep up with the internet." Her husband chuckled. "She probably thinks Wi-Fi is a new kind of pie." They thought it was harmless teasing. But every laugh, every smirk, every whispered word felt like a reminder. You don't belong in this world anymore. I smiled politely each time, hiding the fire burning inside me. Because while they mocked me for being old-fashioned, none of them had the faintest idea that every single night, after the lights went out, I was logging into a system that connected me to customers in 3 different countries. They looked down on me because of a flip phone. But soon, they would learn that the very thing they mocked was the shield I used to build something far beyond their reach. People assumed I was just too old to learn. What they never knew was what pushed me to try. 10 years ago, I lost my husband, Richard. We had been married for more than 4 decades. When he was gone, the silence in our house was so heavy, I thought it would crush me. For the first time in my life, I realized I was completely on my own. Bills still came in the mail, repairs still needed to be made, and the small pension I received barely stretched to cover groceries. One night, sitting at the kitchen table with his old mug still in front of me, I stared at my reflection in the window and thought, "Eleanor, you either learn to stand on your own or you let life bury you alive." So I opened Richard's dusty laptop. The screen glowed blue and the keyboard looked like a foreign language. My hands trembled as I typed in a search bar for the very first time. How to start a business online. It wasn't easy. The first time I tried to sell something, I shipped the package to the wrong address. The second time, the customer demanded a refund and called me a scammer. I cried. I wanted to quit, but every night I kept coming back. I watched free tutorials. I joined online forums, quietly reading, never daring to post. I taught myself how to design, how to market, how to manage payments, and slowly orders began to come in. I remember the first sale clearly. It was a set of handmade scarves I had sewn myself. When the email notification popped up, "Payment received," I pressed my palms together and whispered, "Richard, I did it." That tiny sale lit a fire inside me. It wasn't just money, it was proof. Proof that I wasn't too old, too fragile, or too outdated. Proof that I could build something with my own 2 hands, even if no one believed in me. It happened one Sunday evening during family dinner. The table was set with roast chicken and mashed potatoes, but the air was thick with something else, judgment. My daughter-in-law leaned across the table, her voice dripping with pity. Eleanor, maybe it's time you let us manage your finances. You don't even use online banking. What if someone scams you? The others chuckled softly, shaking their heads. I sat quietly sipping my tea, and then my son Daniel delivered the final blow. Mom, you need to stop pretending you can keep up. You're too old for this world. Something in me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I reached into my bag, not for my flip phone this time, but for my laptop. The silver edges glinted under the chandelier light as I placed it right in the center of the table. Too old, am I? I asked softly. The room went silent. With a few clicks, the screen lit up, rows of numbers, dashboards, and graphs, revenue charts stretching into 6 figures, orders streaming in from New York, Los Angeles, even overseas. The logo of my online company shining bright at the top. For a long moment, no one spoke. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Glasses hovered in midair. Finally, my granddaughter whispered, eyes wide, "Grandma, this is yours." I looked around the table at every stunned face staring back at me. "Yes," I said. "Every late night, every package, every customer review, this is mine. While you were laughing at my flip phone, I was building this." My daughter-in-law's smile crumbled. Daniel's face turned pale. The same people who once saw me as fragile were now speechless in the glow of the screen. I closed the laptop slowly, savoring the silence that followed. "They told me I was too old to matter," I said. "But these numbers tell a different story." The silence at the table didn't last long. Daniel cleared his throat, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, Mom, that's impressive, but you shouldn't carry this burden alone. You're 72. You could get tired, overwhelmed. Maybe let me handle the accounts for you." His wife jumped in, her voice suddenly sweet as honey. "Yes, Eleanor, think about your health. We can help manage everything. You just enjoy your retirement." But behind her smile, I could see it, the greed shining in her eyes. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands, and studied them. For years, they laughed at me, dismissed me, told me I was too old. And now that they saw the money, they wanted to take it. "You want to manage it?" I asked quietly. Daniel nodded eagerly. "Of course, we'd only be protecting you." That's when I reached for my bag again. This time, I pulled out a thick folder of legal documents, contracts, business licenses, trademarks. I slid them across the table toward him. "Do you see these signatures?" I asked. His smile faltered. "They're mine, every one of them. The company is registered under my name only, not yours, not hers, and not anyone else's." My daughter-in-law's face flushed red. "But Eleanor, this isn't safe. You don't understand how ruthless the online world can be." I met her eyes, steady and unshaken. "On the contrary, I understand it better than you ever will. That's why I built layers of protection, legal and digital, that you couldn't untangle even if you tried." Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "You don't trust your own family." I smiled, calm as ever. "Trust is earned. And you lost it the moment you mocked me instead of believing in me." For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Finally, I stood, closing my folder with a soft thud. I built this empire with my own hands, and I will decide who stands beside me. Not those who laughed, but those who respected me, even when the world thought I was nothing. The room was heavy with shame. For the first time, it wasn't me who looked small, it was them. When the confrontation ended, the table sat in stunned silence. My children avoided my gaze, their plates of food untouched. For once, they had no clever remarks, no laughter at my expense. I stood slowly, smoothing the wrinkles in my blouse. "I may be 72, I said softly, "but age has never been a weakness. It's been my greatest weapon. While you underestimated me, I was busy building something none of you believed I could. I turned toward my granddaughter, the only one whose eyes shone with admiration instead of greed. "Would you like to help me with my next shipment?" I asked. Her face lit up, and in that moment, I knew the future of what I built wouldn't be stolen. It would be taught, but the real twist was yet to come. Later that week, I attended a community meeting at the town hall. The same neighbors who once joked that I didn't know Wi-Fi from apple pie now stared as I presented a large check. A donation funded by my company to create a scholarship program for women over 60 who wanted to learn digital skills. Gasps filled the room. Mrs. Carter, the one who teased me from across the fence, whispered, I didn't know you were behind all this." I smiled kindly. "Of course you didn't. You were too busy laughing." The mayor shook my hand, calling me a pillar of resilience. But titles didn't matter. What mattered was watching women my age sign up for classes, hope lighting their eyes the way it once lit mine. And as for me, I kept my old flip phone. Every time it buzzed in my pocket, it wasn't just a call. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest, most underestimated tools could build the biggest empires. So when people ask me now, "Eleanor, why don't you upgrade to a smartphone?" I smile and answer, "Why would I? This little phone built me a kingdom, and it still works just fine."